Hello, today both Steph and myself are joined by Barry B. Benson, prolific internet meme, constant dweller on the futility of existence, and lead protagonist for your favourite vehicle-focused Honeybee-based RPG for the PlayStation 2, B-Movie, The Game, which we will be covering today in jubilant spirits and with great excitement. Barry B. Benson, any words? Okay.
The two of us have not played this game before, or, believe it or not, have never actually seen the film. So let's go.
So on first impressions of the game, and initially starting it, we kind of had quite high hopes. It's quite a fresh presentation, main menu's pretty good, and it's quite a clean feel, to be honest, especially PS2 era. It's kind of not particularly distinct in terms of what was around on the market at the same time, but at the same time it looked good. What did you think, Steph?
Yeah, at first I was quite impressed. It had a kind of open world, kind of sandbox feel to it. It's got you running around. You can like jump in cars. You can talk to people. You can fly about. There's collectibles straight off the bat. You know, so it does give you this feeling of a big sandbox world.
Well, this is the weird. That's exactly it, and it's one of the weird things we picked up on straight away. Is obviously not straight away. Initially, you're just faced with being stuck in a massive honeycomb, if you can imagine that. That's your bag. But then the introduction of cars, and obviously, you know, collectibles being absolutely abundant, it basically gave the kind of Simpsons hit and run sort of feel to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it gave the kind of the same thing of a GTA clone, but being very chilled out compared to GTA.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously that kind of lent itself to our initial surprise, because that obviously strikes as a positive to us. We both like Simpsons hit and run, you know, quite a lot, potentially even more than we like GTA. And so this was good. And yet, you know, there was a little something that was off in both our minds. I mean, most importantly, the fact that why bees would need to drive cars, especially considering there's a mechanic to kind of hover and float and fly in the game, which kind of speeds up your average walk.
But you can't fly. You hover. So you can't go off the path. It's not like a completely open world where a bee could fly from point A to B as the bee flies kind of thing. No, you have to go by the designated roads that they've built for the cars, which makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, lower your expectations for this if you're a modern gamer. It's not Breath of the Feckin' Wild or anything, you know what I mean? It's a B-movie for the PS2, but it's definitely not a kind of grounded game. You're not on wheels, as it were. I mean, that could be a perfect.
That's exactly what you are, because it's quicker. It's quicker to get into a car to drive than it is to fly.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
makes no sense to me at all.
No, not at all. But at the same time, it incentivizes you being in a car at all times. It's weird, man. It's weird. I mean, the one thing I would say, as you're exploring this kind of, because it is like a hub world, isn't it? The honeycomb. It's kind of, it's your base and your center, yes. And you know that because you're a bloody bee, for Christ's sake. Of course, it's your base. But you know, it's alive. At first, we kind of thought it was a bit empty, and then we realized there are pedestrians around. And the thing is, one kind of aspect that this game has that things like The Simpsons Hit and Run and GTA don't, you can actively talk to pedestrians. So you can go up to them, press square or triangle, I forget which one, and you can talk to them. And that made the kind of world seem quite alive, really.
Yeah, it added to it. It definitely added to the feeling of the overall game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it very quickly came crashing down as we actually started to play the game.
Yeah.
So once we got from, you know, the start to the next mission, it was a little mini game. And we completed that mini game, and then there was another mini game, and then we had to go to another part and another mini game, and then we went to another part, and guess what? Another mini game. There's racing. There's what was the other? There was another driving one.
It's like Crazy Taxi, like drop off.
That was it. There's racing. There's Crazy Taxi. There's 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 the game that you play at the arcade where all the balls drop and you have to try and capture one. And
yes, I forgot about that.
it's just like, let's put minigame after minigame for content's sake. Because
Yes,
we can't think
absolutely.
of anything to actually do.
Yes, absolutely. And it's one of those things that as well, again, going back to the whole emphasis on cars, consider that we've mentioned, what, three or four minigames. The majority of those minigames are car-based. But I don't get the focus on
Cars.
It's so
And
weird.
straight away, when you start the game and you finally get into it in gameplay, they say, come and meet me. If you want, you can go grab the nearest car, jump in it, and come and drive. So it's like
Yes.
straight away, it's just like, no, don't bother flying about. Just jump in a car and drive over to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. It's so bizarre. And the thing is that, you know, considering the game has cutscenes, so you're thrown into this world with a cutscene breaking up the kind of introduction before you get into the main game. And then obviously before you get into more of the mini games of the world, you have another cutscene. So it's kind of story building. So anything that's kind of trying to build a story, you would imagine it has a main game and a main focus. And yet this is really trying to build the story and Barry's character. And yet it just focuses on mini games, which is totally at fault with trying to build a story. Do you see what I mean?
It doesn't make
it's
sense.
chalk and cheese, isn't it? And it is weird because the whole point of the cutscenes are basically about Barry, the protagonist, the character you play as, the main character, and it's basically about his existential crisis. Is the way I see it. Is that basically he's just insistent that being a bee means that there's got to be more to life than honey, and he accounts for the fact that there's also wax, but that's kind of a byproduct, so that doesn't count. But he's having this whole existential crisis that there's got to be something greater out there than just this existence. And that's quite a grand premise. And yet, as soon as he starts talking about this grand premise of there's got to be something bigger than me out there, they go, well, you better go and drop Betty B off at her friends, because otherwise she's not going to be able to have tea. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and suddenly you're in crazy bloody taxi. What the hell? It makes so little sense.
It's very odd in the way that they've decided to go about it. The thing that I find the strangest is that in each open world environment, so there's the beehive, and then there was a field of flowers, they have small honeycombs for you to go and collect.
Yes.
Okay? In the garden, I collected them all. There was 100, and they were very easy to find. You use bee vision, which is essentially eagle vision from Assassin's Creed, but it came first. And it points out what you can look at, and everything goes heat vision, and you can see it. It is terrible because everything goes the same color. There's no distinction as to what you're actually looking for. You're looking for flowers that have pollen, so you can pollinate the flowers that are dying, but then there's also these collectathon things. They're all the same color. So you're flying around at a color hoping that is what you're looking for.
Yes.
And then when you collect 100, there's nothing.
Can you imagine, Steph, playing this game if you're colorblind?
It'll be an absolute nightmare.
It's a logistical impossibility, isn't it? Like that, you're never gonna conquer this game, ever.
Even
Ever.
if you're not colorblind, you'll struggle to complete this game.
Yeah. It's complicated enough with working eyes, isn't it? Let alone if your eyes don't bloody work. Christ's sake. Yeah, it is bizarre, isn't it? It's one of those things that we kind of stuck with it, because obviously going from the kind of honeycomb hubwell driving everywhere, and then after a few mini games or whatnot, we're thrust into this garden. We think, oh well, perhaps this is the open environment, and this is where the kind of meat and potatoes of the game is going to take place. And then it's kind of just a prolonged mini game where you're kind of allowed to choose how long your mini game is going to be. You know, it's silly. It's a big mini game, is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, it's a collection of mini games with a loose thread in the middle of them all. But
Absolutely.
The classic scene from the film is Barry gets himself on a tennis ball, not knowing it's a tennis ball, and
Yes.
they pick it up and play tennis with it.
Yes.
Now, in the game, it is just a QTE event. You are just holding down left, holding down right, and it tells you what way to hold it. Up, down just to stop him from getting squished. And as soon as you get to the end of it, it just cuts, loading screen, and then you're on to the next bit. And you're like, there's no, what thread there is there isn't wide enough to actually give you any context. It just feels very just jump to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing.
Absolutely.
There was no, it was very bare bones.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like we said at the start, we haven't actually seen the movie in full. We have seen sequences of the movie from little clips or whatnot. And having that tennis scene is a direct take from the movie, effectively. It is, a carbon copy.
And I think it could have been done well, but it was just really boring.
No, it was just just pieced together, taken as it was. There's no heart or soul there, really, is there?
No.
Yeah, so I think it's got to one of those points where they opened it up and they probably had some sort of grand expectation as to what it was going to be or what they were going to achieve. And then when they realize that what they are working with or the conditions under which they are working are impossible to make it something, they just thought, well, just take the bloody film and run with it. Do you know what I mean? And stick some quick time sections and press down when the ball is going down, and press up when the ball's going up. I mean, the saving grace, I would say, is the little cutscenes or little bits in between or some bits of dialogue are quite funny and quite humorous. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this is a game which doesn't have a clue what the hell it wants to be. And really,
Yes.
I feel like that's the key for this, is that it's a game that has no identity.
Exactly. And they've done the worst thing that a game based on a film can do, which is just copy the film.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Because it doesn't relate, it doesn't work, it's not the same.
So the big takeaways we've taken from B-Movie, the game for the PlayStation 2, is that effectively it's just a general collectathon. But really, for what? Collectathons are great, but only when they have a purpose for you to be working yourself ragged for small, repetitive items. So on one level, it's completely void of content. Yet on another level, it makes Skyrim look lacking for content, considering especially just the abundance of what's going on. Effectively, on another level, when we talk about narrative, the game achieves a certain success that other games just can't seem to replicate. Considering Barry's existential crisis of there must be something more to life than honey as a focal point of the narrative, and then in complete sympathetic fallacy, throwing yourself into endless, repetitive, and seemingly pointless tasks of endless minigames, you find yourself in an almost identical moral standpoint as Barry, questioning the futility of your existence as a whole.
So based on the points of what we've said in the video, Tom, would you keep playing this game?
You know what, Steph? I wouldn't, and I'm likening this whole B-movie experience to an experience we've had previously, which is Finding Nemo for the PlayStation 2. And they are both just like small muddling minigames. It's the sort of thing that you could find yourself enjoying it for 20 or so minutes, but that is it. There is nothing more to be gained from this. Like a dried up bit of fruit. There's no more life in that. It's a no from me, Steph.
I completely agree. It's a no from me as well.
I'd be shocked if you didn't. So onto the film. Does the game inspire you to watch B-Movie?
I would say the game does not inspire me to watch B-Movie, but the memes inspire me to watch B-Movie.
Yes, this is it. In fact, the game has actually done nothing but detract my want to watch B-Movie. Whilst previously, the memes had made me want to watch B-Movie. So actually the game has done itself a disservice in promoting the B-Movie.
I completely agree.
Yeah. And so, really, our namesake, is it a cash grab?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't need to muddle about with this one, is it? It's a cash grab for so many reasons. But I think the most evident one is, like you mentioned earlier, kind of directly ripping from the movie. And that's you know, when the game itself has no creative merit, that screams cash grab in my eyes.
There are a few ways to do it. You could do it like Hercules for the PlayStation 1, where you take the bits that make sense, you know, the training mission for Hercules, which is quite far into the film, is where Hercules actually starts training to be what he becomes. And you start on that in the Hercules game because that's where it should start.
Yeah.
B-movie, opposite. B-movie starts at the beginning of the film because that's where they've decided, let's just start the game there. It makes sense. And they just fill it with padding of mini games to help you get through it.
Absolutely, dudes. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's a cash grab. Okay, and to finish this episode, we're going to decide where B-movie for the PlayStation 2 sits on our tier list. Steph, do you have any initial thoughts?
So my initial thoughts are to put it alongside Finding Nemo.
You know what? It's the logical place to put it, isn't it? Because it shares so many similarities to it. It's not a terrible game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not a good one. But when you look at the tier list and you consider that it's in the B category, which is quite fitting, I must admit, I didn't realise where I was going with that
Neither
one.
did I. That was good.
But yeah, it seems high. But look, I'll concede. Let's put it alongside Finding Nemo. But I'd put it.
No, we can have arguments. I think it's behind. It could be behind Spider-Man. You could call it mid-C tier.
Well, see, I think Power Rangers is better than it.
Yeah, so do I.
And
I'd probably rather play Incredibles.
Yeah, and to be honest, you know what? In front of Ghostbusters, but behind Cool Spot?
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that good?
Yeah.
Wow, look, C's doubling down.
He's bigging up now.
He's doubling down on crap games. All right, wonderful stuff. Well, look, that is it. B-Movie has found its place as another one of our incredibly vast collection of bad games that we have played. It has been a pleasure, and thank you so much for watching. If you would consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel, that would mean the world to us. And if you are feeling very generous, do consider popping over to our Patreon and maybe considering being a patron. That would be wonderful. But thank you for watching. Get in touch with us and hit us up for a next video. We'll catch you next time.